One of my favorite projects, I have to say, is Women Are Heroes, but the section in Brazil. So we're in 2009, and I've been scouting for years. Are we even in 2008, actually? I've been scouting for years in the favelas of Brazil. And I went there in 2006 or 7, and I realized it was very complicated to work in a favela because of, a small section of the people in the community, maybe 10–20% that are part of drug dealing. So there's a lot of gun involved. There's a lot of firearms you don't even see anywhere, and that you see in favelas. And so I never knew how to even do an art project in such a place. So I didn't do for a couple of years. And then I remember being in France, watching the news, and I saw on television in France a subject that explained that on the news, that says that 3 kids who were not part of the drug dealing were controlled by the police for their paper up in this favela called Providência, and then been taken away by the police because they didn't have their paper, and been sold to another favela after they had passed by the police station, been sold to another favela which was an enemy favela, and got killed and chopped in pieces, and they've been found in the garbage. So it was a horrific story. And they actually, found the police, they got guilty. And so the people in Brazil lost faith in their police. And it was a big thing that made it to our news in France. So I called a friend in Brazil and I say, hey, have you heard about this favela called Providência? And he said, oh, yes, well, you probably heard in the news. I said, yes. He said, well, it's a complicated favela because it's the first favela of Brazil. And it's also the birth of the commando, the Red Commando, which is one of the 3 drug factions. And so it's a very, violent place, and it's half built on a rock, so it's hard to invade. So they've always controlled their favela, and there's no NGO, there's no association of the people there like in other favelas, so you can have a contact. There's no school in there. It's a hard one to get in. So he said, I can't help you with this one. And I said, well, I'll come to Brazil and at least we'll look at it from a distance, because I'm curious. It's kind of a horrific story. And, even if we don't do something in that favela, I want to come and see if I could do something in Brazil. So I went there in 2008. And we looked at the favela, which is in the center of the city next to the main train station. And we looked at it from, down the hill, because the favela is on a big hill, and looked at all the houses and, all this architecture of houses built one above the other. Even if when you look on a map of Rio, the hill is just green, like no one would living there. They only show the streets that happen on the asphalt, on the ground, but not the hill. So for the people who live there, which is more people live in favelas than in the city, it looks like they don't exist. And as we walk around, one woman who was coming back with her grocery, called, Rosiette, and stopped and say, hey, excuse me, guys, what are you doing? And she was around, 60 or 55, and we said, oh, she could see we were not from here and it looked like tourists. And she said, well, it's dangerous, guys, here. You shouldn't be staying even down the hill here. Oh, so sorry, I'm an artist from France, and I wanted to, have more information about this favela. I said, oh, okay, you're an artist. Well, we need artists, but you can't come up like this. You need to go home, put your backpack home, and maybe just come with a book or something that shows your work, and come and see me tomorrow. And so we let her go with her, bags, and we go home and drop our stuff. And the next day, I just come with a book, and I walk up with my friend all the way up, and as soon as we see, each time we see a guy with a big gun and factions of the drug dealers, we say, we come to see Rosiette, and they say, sure, like keep going up. And we made it all the way to the top. And then she was sitting there with 2 other ladies, and we sat in a little room, and I showed them my book, and they say, oh, we need art here, there's not enough art. Okay, I understand you paste photos, and I showed her what I've done in the Middle East, and I showed her what I've done in the suburbs of Paris. And then they called this guy called Maurizio, and then they say, it's a photographer. I say, well, thank you, I don't really need a photographer, but no, you need to talk to him, he's from here, and he needs to see your work. So when he came, he sat and looked at the work and he said, well, how do you expect to do that here? Do you know the context here? Do you understand, what kind of place this is? And I say, well, of course I've heard of, but I don't really know. I've only seen movies and stuff. He said, well, you couldn't do something like that here. Let me walk you down. So I say bye, and then we walk with him. And on the way, he explained me the story of Providencia, which is actually amazing. The story is that, 115 years ago, or maybe now 120, the state wanted to get some land from the north, and they wanted to find some people to fight to get those lands back. And they find some warrior and and they're like, guys, if you get that land, when you come back, we give you your own land. So those guys went in the north, fought, and then got the land back, came back, and then the state didn't give them the land. So they went in front of the Palais de Justicia, the justice building, and they stayed in front. And then for days and days and nothing. So then there was a hill in front, which is called Morro da Providência, the hill of Providencia. But on this hill, there's a plant called favela, which is a plant that would, it's not a nice plant for your body. I don't know how to say it, but you don't want to. So that's why no one would really go in those hills. But those guys have just fought, so they don't care. They just cut this plant and stayed and do a sitting in front of the Justice Palace to be like, until you don't give us our land, we'll stay here. And that's basically how favela started. That's why the word comes from, the word favela. And Maurizio explained me all this. And as we go down, he explained me also how he came into photography, because his dad was the first, gangster of the favela who then organized crime way before drug, at the time where, gangsters were like, give back to the community, and it was mainly be bank robbery and stuff like that. But for him, growing up with a dad being a gangster was not cool, and so he had no friends, so he was really lonely. So he became an artist, and then touched photography and started documenting his community, and became a link in the community between people. He always stayed neutral and never got into the same job as his father, or then later on drug dealing or anything. So when we arrived down, I was like, thank you for this amazing story. And I took a photo of the favela from down, and then I said, can I see you tomorrow? He's like, yes, we can meet, but not up there. It's easier if we meet down there. And so at night at home, I just took some photos that I had from other project, and I put them on, on the computer on the favela. So one eye here, one other eye here, one face there. And then I printed it in a very shitty way, and then saw him the next morning. And I show him, and he looks at it, and he goes, oh my God, that's my neighbor, or that's my house right there. Oh, you put one on, that woman, I know her really well. And I said, well, if you have a minute, can we go knock at her house and see, if she would be okay for that? And she said, well, okay, it's right there, let's do it. So we walk up, and then we knock at the door, and he explained, I don't even speak Portuguese at that time. And he said, hey, I'm here. Oh, hey, Maurizio, what do you need? No, I'm here with this artist from France, and he want to put some photography on your building. Oh, what is this for? Is that political? He's like, no, it's just an art project. Oh, but is that going to damage my house? And he asked me, and I said, no, it's just paper and glue. No, it doesn't. Oh, okay, the door's open, just come in and do it. And he's like, oh, wait, no, we don't have it now. And then I put on the little print I had, she's okay. And then we went house by house, and in one day, 70% of the people said yes. Others needed to wait for the husband to come home, or, ask their family. And so the project started like that. And then we went back to Rosiette, the woman, and we said, well, I need to photograph women. She said, well, you can't bring a camera here, but we can do it inside a closed space up there. I know a space in the favela where you can do it. And then she called out for women who wanted to speak. And the women who came were the mother, the sister, the best friend of the 3 kids that died. And so they came, and they didn't even know who I was or what I was doing. They just wanted to throw their story like in a bottle in the ocean and just share it. So the interviews were really heavy, and I didn't have to ask any question. They just, shared it. So I took their portrait at that time, and then I sent it to my friends in France, and I say, start printing those portraits, and then take the next flight and meet me. And then the first pasting that they printed was the stairs. The stairs was really, you know, a very big stairs in the favela that go from almost the top of the hill to the top of the hill. And when we started pasting there, we didn't even had asked the drug dealer or anybody. We wanted to do a first one there. So we came and, you know, start pasting on the side of the stairs there. And you can only see it from the inside of the favela, and Rosiech and the other people were there. And as soon as we start pasting, after 2 hours, there's a big shooting happening. Police comes up, drug dealers replied. We're in the middle of that. We were actually documenting our own pasting, so we have that on video. And so we hide, and then we're all safe, but the next day we come back and continue. And then we paste that photo of that woman who's holding like that, and she was actually the grandmother of one of the 3 kids. So everyone in the favela at that time understand, oh, okay, that's what this project's about. You know, it's about us. And I remember someone organized for me to meet the drug dealers, just so that I can talk and explain the project, because they were really confused about why we were here doing this, and even if we were with some people from the community. So we had to kind of ask them their permission, or they're okay to keep going. And I went there, and I was there with Laj Lee, who came with me on that project to film and document. And so we took our computer and ended up in front of the drug dealers and showed them what we had done in the projects of Paris. I showed them what I had done in the Middle East. But the guys were like, we don't even know, you know, that your place in France looks like a rich neighborhood, and then Israel-Palestine, I've never heard of it. They were completely on another, you know, frame reference than we are. So I couldn't, you know, find points of connection with them. So they asked me, why are you doing this? I was like, well, I'm doing this project, and I've already done it in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and it's about women in conflict zone. And they say, well, what's the purpose of this? And I say, well, there's, you know, it's to show the people directly, but there's no other message. It's not sponsored by any brand. We're self-financing it. If you don't like it, we can take it down. There's no one else behind us. And they say, well, what is this going to change to us, to our community? And I say, I don't know. It's just going to show a different perspective than what the media is showing, which is always about the people dying every day from crime. And, you know, 90% of the people I see here are just working every day hard to make a living, to raise their children. And I understand from just spending 2-3 days here that this is, you know, there's a bigger picture to that. They never say yes, they never say no, but I've been told, okay, we got to move now. And someone told me, you can start. So we started pasting the houses one by one, and we couldn't film, but we could do, they allowed us to take photos as long as there was never any weapon in the frame. That's why I've documented most of the project in time-lapse, actually. And it took us 24 days to paste the entire favela. And during that time, people helped us, gave us their own water, helped us climb through their windows, through their roofs, to paste the whole project. And it was the first time I would stay that long into one location, because I went for a long time in places, but I would always move very quickly from one place to another so that I could never get arrested. But there was no question of police, you know, it's like, you know, it's a no-go zone, so it's other rights, and it's a whole other planet within the same, you know, city, Rio de Janeiro. So after 24 days, and all the pastings were pasted, and people in the city, because they could see those eyes looking at the city, were trying to understand what it was. So they sent helicopters to film from a distance the project and put a number on television and say, call if you have any information about that. So then, you know, pretty quickly some people say, yeah, I think it's these French people doing this, and then, you know, this is the eyes of the woman. And then slowly some trucks started arriving down the hill, because they could go up with journalists. And that's the day I left, actually, Brazil. And it's the woman who went down the hill to talk about the project. And that's really the moment I realized how their narrative was much more interesting and much more powerful, because, you know, they would interpret the art in their own words, in their own, you know, what it meant to them. And I have to say that this was a very important moment for me to, like, take a step back and really more and more let people that are involved in the project talk about the project. And over the years, the impact of the project, we could have measured it because now it's been 10 years that this project has been done. We started a school actually 10 years ago. There we bought a little house and started a school, and we could see how to show that through the eyes of the woman at favela, and it got in the press a lot and it got seen a lot. It forced the city, and the mayor confessed it to me years later, that he had to do something for the community. So they suddenly sent trucks to pick up the garbage. They redid the rail on the stairs. They started redoing stuff in the community. And so that's the moment also I realized that art can really have an impact, a physical and concrete impact in a favela. And that's why I think we've been able to build a school there and still be there even if this favela haven't been pacified to this day.